Huh. They got you chasing ghosts, huh? Running circles, trying to prove to a pack of wolves that you're not made of meat. That's the thing about them. They see you bleeding, and they start to think you're prey. But here's the truth. They ain't satisfied till they see you crawling. Till you've emptied yourself dry, begging for a seat at their rotten little table. Pathetic. You want to know the punchline to their sick joke? You don't owe them a damn thing. Not a drop of sweat, not an ounce of pain, not a single breath. They built this whole circus just to see you dance, to watch you break your back for a half smirk of approval. But what they don't tell you is this. You're free the moment you stop caring if they clap. See people like them? They're miserable. They can't stand the sight of someone who doesn't need their permission to exist. It's not that they want you to fail. It's worse. They want you to keep trying, to stay on your knees, thinking. If you just fight hard enough, they'll finally open the gates and let you in. But that's the con. The gates were never locked. Hell, they don't even exist. You think it's about proving your worth? No. It's about making sure you never realize you already had it. That's the cruelest trick. Convincing you that you need to earn what was yours all along. The moment you stop trying to prove yourself to them, you become something they can't control, a wild card. And they hate that. Oh, how they hate that. They want you busy, too busy to figure out that the ones pointing fingers got the dirtiest hands. They tell you to keep your head down, follow the rules, play the long game. But take a good look at them. The ones telling you to stay in line ain't ever been where you're going. They've never fought with the wolves, never bled alone in the dark. Their victories were handed to them on silver platters, and they want you to believe yours will be too. If you just keep proving yourself. But tell me this, why the hell should you prove anything to people who couldn't survive a day in your skin? They've never seen the world from the gutters you've crawled through. They've never had to stitch their own wounds, wipe their own tears, bury their own ghosts. You're the one who fought with your fists cracked and bloody, who dragged yourself back up every time they spat in your face. You're the one who stayed, even when everyone else left. That's worth something. That's worth more than all their backhanded compliments and hollow praise. You know what I think? I think they're scared. Because deep down, they know that if you ever stop trying to prove yourself to them, if you ever realized that their opinions are worth less than dust, you'd be unstoppable. But they'll never say that. No. They'll just keep moving the goalposts, keep whispering that you're almost there, just a little harder, a little longer. It's a lie. You're not almost there. You've been there all along. You just gotta see it. The way I see it, you got two options. You keep dancing for their scraps, keep twisting yourself into knots trying to impress people who'll never be impressed. Or you burn the damn script. Walk away. Not because you're weak, but because you finally realized that the strongest move is to stop playing a rigged game. They want you to believe that if you walk away, you've lost. But that's the twist, see? The real victory is walking away without looking back. It's watching their jaws drop when they realize they can't pull your strings anymore. You don't need their applause. You never did. They'll call you arrogant. They'll say you're scared of failure, that you're not good enough to play with them. But you gotta understand, that's just noise. People like that, they can't comprehend someone who doesn't crave their approval. It terrifies them, because if you don't need them, then they're powerless. And God, they hate being powerless. So let them talk. Let them write you off, call you every name in the book, smile, nod. Because at the end of the day, their words are just that, words. They don't build empires. They don't win wars. And they sure as hell don't define who you are. The only one you gotta prove anything to is the face in the mirror. That's it. And between you and me, I think you've already proven enough. All that's left is for you to see it, to realize that their little game was never worth your time. That all those sleepless nights, all that pain and sacrifice, it wasn't for them. It was for you. You think they understand the nights you spent staring at the ceiling? Fists clenched, chest heavy with the weight of it all? You think they understand what it feels like to be buried alive in your own mind, clawing for air while they stand at the surface, grinning? Number they don't understand, and they never will. So stop breaking your back for people who'd let you drown. Stop handing them swords and wondering why they keep stabbing you in the back. You got nothing to prove to them. Nothing. You're still breathing. After everything, after all the knives and lies and empty promises, you're still here. And that's enough. They want you to prove yourself. To who? A bunch of scared little sheep pretending to be wolves? Number. You're done proving yourself to anyone but you. Take the chains off. Light a match. Burn their expectations to the ground and walk away. Because the only thing worse than fighting a war you can't win is fighting one you never needed to fight in the first place. Let them watch as you leave. Let them choke on their words. Because in the end, their opinions die with them. But the legacy of a man who fights for himself, that lives forever. So what's it gonna be? Keep dancing for an audience that'll never applaud, or walk away and let the silence remind them of everything they'll never be? Your move, kid. You see, kid, the real prison isn't the walls they build around you. It's the walls they build inside your head. It's that voice they plant, whispering that you're not enough. That if you just tried a little harder, bent a little further, they'd finally see your worth. But that's the trap. You can twist yourself into knots, bleed yourself dry, and it still wouldn't be enough. Not because you're lacking, but because they need you to believe that you are. That's the only way they stay in control. The moment you wake up, the moment you stop buying their lies, the whole charade falls apart. But waking up, well, that's the hard part, ain't it? Because admitting that they were never gonna accept you no matter what, that stings more than any knife in the back. It's easier to keep chasing, keep hoping that maybe this time they'll clap. But let me tell you something. Hope, when it's tied to the approval of people who thrive on seeing you crawl, is a chain just as strong as fear. They know that. They count on it. They dress it up real nice. Call it ambition. Call it drive. Make you believe that if you just endure a little more humiliation, a little more pain, you'll finally be one of them. But you'll never be one of them. You weren't made to fit in their little boxes, to smile and nod and play nice. You weren't made to kneel. That's why they hate you so much. That's why they keep trying to break you. Because somewhere deep down, they know you're different. You're something they can't understand, can't control. And that scares them. God, it terrifies them. That's why they keep raising the bar and keep moving the goalposts. Because the moment you stop trying to win their game, the moment you realize you don't need their approval to be enough, you become something they can't touch. But the truth is a bitter pill to swallow, ain't it? Admitting that the people you broke yourself for never really gave a damn, that they only ever saw you as another pawn to move around the board. It makes all those years you spent running yourself ragged feel like a joke. Makes you want to scream, tear down everything, burn the whole damn game to the ground. And maybe that's not such a bad idea. Maybe it's time to stop playing by their rules. Time to stop living for the applause of people who'll never understand your struggle, who'll never carry your scars. You see, kid, freedom isn't about escaping the cage. It's about realizing the cage was never locked. The door's been open the whole time. You just gotta stop waiting for permission to walk through it. You gotta stop needing them to tell you it's okay to be who you are, to want what you want, because they never will. They can't. Their power depends on you staying in that cage, thinking you need them to survive. But the moment you stop caring if they understand, if they approve, if they like you, that's the moment you win. That's the moment you become something they can never break. And yeah, it's lonely. It's cold out there in the dark, with no one clapping, no one cheering, just you and the silence. But that's where the real ones are born. That's where legends are made. In the quiet, in the dark, when there's no one left to lie to, no one left to impress, just you and the truth. And the truth is, you were never less than enough. They just couldn't stand to see someone who didn't need them to be whole. They couldn't stand to see someone who wouldn't play the part, who wouldn't sell his soul for a little bit of praise. But here's the thing about standing alone. It makes you stronger than they'll ever be. It makes you untouchable. Because the man who needs nothing can't be bought, can't be broken. And that's what they'll never understand. That's what'll haunt them long after you've left their little circus in ashes. They'll lay awake at night, choking on their own lies, knowing that all the power they had over you was nothing but smoke and mirrors. So let them talk. Let them slander your name. Let them twist the story, make you the villain in their little fairy tale. Let them do their worst, because in the end, their words are just empty bullets, fired from rusty guns by cowards too scared to face their own reflection. And you, well, you're still standing, still breathing. After everything, after every knife and every lie, you're still here. That's power. That's strength. Not the kind they talk about with their fancy suits and shiny smiles, but the kind that keeps getting back up, no matter how many times the world tries to bury it. And yeah, maybe the scars never really heal. Maybe you carry them forever. Reminders of every time you bled alone in the dark. But that's not weakness. That's proof. Proof that you fought and survived. That you refused to break. Refused to let them win. And if that makes you a monster, well, maybe it's time to stop apologizing for it. Maybe it's time to embrace the darkness, to stop trying to be something you're not for a world that'll never appreciate what you are. Because at the end of the day, the only person you gotta face is yourself. The only approval that matters is the kind you find staring back at you in the mirror. And the man who doesn't need anyone's permission to exist, that man is free. That man is dangerous because he's got nothing to lose, nothing to prove, and nothing left to fear. So walk away, burn the bridges if you have to, light a match, and don't look back. Let them choke on the ashes. Let them scream and curse your name. Let them tell their lies to anyone who will listen. It doesn't matter. They're prisoners to their own delusions, slaves to the applause, desperate for a seat at a table that was always rotten to the core. But you're free. And that, kid, is the cruelest joke of all. So let the silence fall. Let the world turn without you. Stand in the ashes of everything they thought they'd built and laugh. Because the real victory isn't proving them wrong. It's realizing you never had to. It's realizing you were enough all along, scars and all. And if they want to call you a monster for it, if they want to write you off as arrogant or bitter or broken, let them. Monsters don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. Monsters survive. And the ones who survive write the story. So write yours in fire and blood, in silence and truth, and let them choke on every word, because you got nothing to prove, not to them, not to anyone, only to yourself. And that, kid, is the hardest lesson of all, ain't it? That you're alone in this fight, not because nobody cares, but because nobody gets it. Not really. You spend years clawing your way out of the dark, thinking maybe, just maybe, If you scream loud enough, someone will hear you. But they don't. They're too busy drowning in their own noise, too busy pretending they ain't terrified of the silence. So you learn to hold it all in, to bite your tongue till it bleeds, to carry the weight without ever letting it show. That's the game they taught you, right? Keep smiling, keep playing nice, keep making sure everyone else is comfortable, even when you're falling apart. But here's the thing about pretending. You do it long enough, and you start to forget who you were before the mask. You start to believe that maybe this is all you'll ever be. So you keep proving yourself, keep grinding yourself into dust, hoping that if you suffer enough, fight hard enough, you'll finally be worthy. But worthy of what, exactly? A pat on the back from a bunch of people who couldn't survive a day in your skin? Applause from an audience that'll move on the second you're not bleeding for their entertainment? Number, that ain't worth it. Not even close. You see, they want you exhausted. They want you too tired to think, too broken to fight back. That's the trick. Keep you chasing a dream they'll never let you catch. Keep you running on empty till you finally collapse. And then, well, they move on to the next poor bastard desperate enough to believe their lies. It's a cycle, a meat grinder for souls, and they've been perfecting it for years. The only way to win is to stop playing, to stand still while the whole world screams at you to run, to look them dead in the eye and say, no more. But that takes a different kind of strength, doesn't it? Not the kind you get from fists or fury, but the kind that comes from ripping out the lies they planted in your head and watching them burn. The kind that says, I am enough, even if you never see it, even if no one ever does. That's the strength that scares them, the kind they can't control or predict, because a man who knows his own worth can't be bought, can't be bent, can't be made to dance for scraps. And that makes you dangerous. You think they don't see it? That spark in your eyes? The one that says you're 2 steps away from tearing the whole system down? They see it all right. That's why they push so hard, why they keep tightening the screws. They need to break that spark before it catches fire, before you wake up and realize that the chains were never real, that the prison was always in your mind. But they're too late, aren't they? You've already started to see it, already started to taste what freedom might feel like, what it might mean to stop apologizing for who you are. And that scares them more than anything. They'll call you selfish. They'll call you a monster, say you've changed, that you're bitter, angry, lost. Let them. Those are just words they use when they see someone they can't tame, someone who refuses to stay on his knees. Because deep down, they know the truth. They made you this way. Every lie, every knife in the back, every cold shoulder, they built this. They forged you in betrayal and silence. And now they want to act surprised when you stop smiling and start swinging back. So swing. Burn it all down if you have to. Tear the mask off and let them see the scars, the rage, the emptiness. Show them the monster they created, and smile when they flinch, because you've spent enough nights drowning in silence, enough years tearing yourself apart, trying to be what they wanted. It's time to stop. Time to take back what's yours. The pain, the rage, the freedom to live on your own terms. No apologies, no regrets. And yeah, it's gonna hurt. Walking away always does. Because a part of you is still that scared kid, desperate for a kind word, for someone to say, "You're enough." That part of you is gonna scream, gonna claw, and beg to turn back, to try one more time, to bleed a little more, just to hear them say it. But you can't. Not anymore. Because the truth is, they'll never say it. They can't. Their power depends on you never realizing you're enough without them, that you don't need their approval to breathe, to exist, to fight back. So let that part of you die. Bury it deep and don't look back. Because the boy who needed their love, their acceptance, he didn't survive. You did. You. The one with blood on his knuckles and darkness in his eyes. The one who stared into the abyss and didn't blink. You don't need their love. You don't need anyone's. That's the cruelest joke of all, ain't it? That all this time, all the pain and suffering and nights alone, it was never about them. It was about you, finding the strength to stand alone, to build a kingdom out of ashes with your bare hands. So build it, brick by bloody brick. Tear down every lie they ever told you, and build something real, something that doesn't need their permission to exist. And when they come crawling back, when they try to slip their chains around your neck again, cut them down. Look them in the eye and let them see the fire. Let them see that you're not the boy who needed their love. Not anymore. You're something else now. Something they can't tame, can't control, can't ever break again. Because that's the real power. Not in fists or words or even rage, but in walking away without a backward glance, in knowing that you owe them nothing, not your pain, not your forgiveness, not a single damn thing. Let them keep their lies, their empty smiles, their broken promises. Let them rot in their little glass houses while you build something real, something that lasts. Because they'll tell you it's about winning, about proving them wrong, about rising above. But it's not. It's about freedom. It's about taking back your life, your soul, every broken piece they stole, and gluing it back together with blood and grit and fire. It's about looking them dead in the eye and saying, "I'm still here." That's the punchline. That's the victory. So laugh, scream if you have to. Let the world hear that you're done apologizing, done proving yourself, done playing by rules written by cowards. Because the man who fights for himself, who answers to no one but the face in the mirror. That man is unstoppable. That man is free. And in the end, that's all that matters. Not their approval, not their praise, not even their hate, just the silence when they realize you never needed them to begin with. Just the ashes of their lies smoldering in the dark, while you walk away with fire in your eyes and freedom in your veins. That's the joke, kid. That's the twist. You've been free all along. Now burn the cage and show them what that means. And that's the part they'll never understand, isn't it? The part that keeps them awake at night, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. How someone they spent years trying to break could still stand their eyes, cold and steady, mouth set in a grim line. They don't get it. They never will, because they've spent their whole lives hiding from the dark, building walls and lighting candles and pretending the shadows ain't coming for them. But you were born in it, shaped by it. Learned to see in the pitch black when everyone else was too busy closing their eyes. That's what makes you dangerous. Not the rage or the scars or even the pain, but the fact that you can stare into the abyss and it flinches first. That's power, the kind they can't buy or steal or fake. And they hate you for it. Because if there's one thing the world can't stand, it's a man who doesn't need its approval to survive. A man who can take every knife, every lie, every betrayal, and turn it into fuel, into fire, into a reason to keep going when every sane person would have quit a long time ago. But that's the thing about sanity, ain't it? It's a luxury for people who've never had to crawl through the mud, never had to fight with blood in their mouth and no one in their corner. Sanity is for the safe, the comfortable, the ones who sleep soundly in their little glass houses, pretending the world ain't rotting outside their door. But for the rest of us, for the ones who've tasted betrayal and learned to smile through broken teeth, sanity is just another chain. It's a muzzle they strap on to keep us from tearing down the lies they built their kingdoms on. So maybe you are a monster. Maybe the dark did twist you up inside, leave you colder, harder, with edges sharp enough to draw blood. But monsters survive. Monsters claw their way out of graves, stitch themselves back together with spit and spite, and keep moving, no matter how many times the world tries to bury them. And maybe that's not noble or heroic, or any of the pretty words they use to dress up the ones who die for nothing, but it's real, it's honest. And in a world built on lies, maybe that's enough. See, they don't want you to be honest. Not with them, not with yourself. Because honesty is dangerous. Honesty is admitting that the only reason they keep you around is to feel better about their own empty lives. That they need someone to look down on, someone to blame when the mask slips and they catch a glimpse of the rot underneath. They need you broken, need you begging, need you to keep tearing yourself apart for a seat at a table that was never meant for you. But the moment you see through it, the moment you stop trying to be what they want, stop playing the part they wrote for you, that's the moment you become a threat. That's the moment they start sharpening their knives, start spreading their lies, start calling you selfish, arrogant, bitter, because they can't afford to let the others see it, can't afford to let anyone realize that maybe, just maybe, there's a way out of the cage. And yeah, walking away leaves a bitter taste, leaves you standing alone in the cold, hands empty, teeth clenched, trying to remember how to breathe without all the noise, without all the lies whispering that you're nothing without them. It's a special kind of pain, tearing out the parts of you that spent years craving their approval, learning to exist without the need to prove yourself to a world that never deserved you in the first place. It's like scraping rust off iron, slow, bloody work that leaves you raw and exposed and half convinced you'll never be whole again. But that's the only way out, the only way to win, not by proving them wrong, but by proving to yourself that you don't need to, by learning to stand alone in the dark, by making peace with the silence and the scars and the parts of you that'll never be clean again. That's the real freedom. Not applause or victory or any of the pretty lies they sell you, but the simple, brutal truth that you're enough just as you are, that you always were. And sure, they'll call you heartless, say you're cold, say you don't care, that you've let the dark swallow you whole. Let them. Those are just words the weak use to keep the strong from walking away. Just shackles made of breath and air, empty as the promises they used to keep you in line. But you're done listening, done waiting for the world to give you permission to breathe, to fight, to exist. Because if there's one thing you've learned crawling through the dark, it's that you can't save people who like the chains, can't free those who've convinced themselves that the cage is all there is. You'll waste your whole life trying to pull them out, trying to show them the truth, and they'll hate you for it, because the truth hurts. The truth is that most people would rather die in chains than live with bloody hands and a clear conscience. So let them rot. Let them whisper and sneer and write you off as a lost cause. Let them call you cold, cruel, selfish. Let them spit their venom until their throats are raw and their tongues turn black. Because in the end, their words die with them. In the end, all that's left is silence and blood and the ones who had the guts to crawl through hell and come out the other side, breathing. And that's you, the one who didn't break, who didn't kneel, who didn't hand over his soul for a little bit of comfort and a smile that never reached their eyes. The one who learned to fight with bleeding knuckles and empty hands and eyes that have seen too much and never once looked away. That's power. That's freedom. Not in chains or titles or applause, but in the choice to stand alone, to walk away, to look the world in the eye and say, I don't need you. And if that makes you a monster, then so be it. Monsters don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. Monsters don't beg for scraps from a table built on lies and betrayal. Monsters survive. They thrive in the dark, build kingdoms out of bones and blood, and learn to smile through broken teeth. And that, well, that's something they'll never understand. So walk away. Let the bridges burn. Let the past turn to ashes and the lies choke on their own smoke. You've got nothing to prove. Not to them, not to the world, not even to yourself. You've already won. The moment you stopped caring, the moment you stopped needing them to see, to understand, that was the victory. That was the freedom. And when the smoke clears, when the silence falls and all the liars are dead and gone, you'll still be standing. You, the monster, the outcast, the one who didn't break, didn't bend, didn't beg, the one who took the darkness and wore it like armor, who looked into the abyss and didn't flinch. Because the truth is simple, brutal, unchanging. You don't need them. You never did. And that's the punchline. That's the joke. So laugh, walk away, burn the script, and write your own story in fire and blood and silence. Because in the end, they'll remember you, not for the wounds or the rage or the darkness, but for the simple, unbreakable fact that you refused to kneel. And that, well, that's all that matters. You're too loud, too desperate to explain yourself to people who aren't even listening. That's your problem. You think if you talk enough, they'll understand. If you defend yourself enough, they'll back off. But that's not how it works, kid. The louder you get, the weaker you seem. See? They want a reaction. That's the whole game. They poke and prod, hoping you'll snap so they can point and say, see? We were right about you. You're playing right into their hands and you don't even see it. Look around. Look real close. The ones who bark the loudest usually got the weakest bite. They live for chaos, feed on it, need it like air, because without it, they got nothing, just empty shells pretending to matter. They build their little sandcastles of lies and watch you scramble to knock them down. But here's the secret. You don't have to. Just stand back, keep quiet, and watch the tide roll in. The truth's got a funny way of surfacing no matter how deep they try to bury it. You think silence is weakness, don't you? That if you don't defend yourself, they'll win. But silence, real, controlled silence, is a weapon sharper than any word. It's a mirror, forcing them to see the ugliness in their own reflection. They'll tear themselves apart trying to figure you out. You don't have to lift a finger. Just fold your arms, lean back, and watch the fireworks. You're wasting energy trying to fix what's already broken. Some people, they got rot in their bones. No amount of reasoning's gonna change that. They don't want to understand. They want to control, to break you down until you start to believe their lies. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile. That's how parasites work. They latch on and drain you dry, leaving you hollow and empty. So cut them off, cold and clean. Let them choke on the silence. Reactions give them power. That look in your eyes when they spit their poison, that's what they live for. Your anger, your frustration, your pain. It's all fuel for their little infernos. Starve them. Smile if you have to. Or stare right through them like they're already ghosts. You don't owe anyone an explanation for the way you live your life. Let them talk. Words are cheap. Actions, though, those leave scars. So stop explaining and start showing. You want to survive this world? Learn the power of silence. Real power doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to prove itself. It just is. The lion doesn't concern itself with the opinions of sheep. You're out here trying to prove you're not the villain they paint you as. But let me tell you a secret, kid. If they've already made up their minds, nothing you say is gonna change that. So stop wasting your breath. Think of it like chess. You don't see the king rushing across the board to prove he's the king, do you? Number, he moves slow, deliberate. Every step, a calculation. Meanwhile, the pawns rush forward, throwing themselves into the fight, desperate and disposable. You gotta think like the king. Let them tire themselves out trying to get to you. Make them work for every inch. And when they're exhausted, when they're stumbling and confused, that's when you strike, but not a second before. See, most people, they're predictable. They want to be heard, want to be seen, want to matter. That's their weakness. You, though, you can be different. You can be the silence that unnerves them, the question they can't answer, the storm that never breaks. You can be the thing that keeps them up at night, wondering, guessing, tearing their hair out, trying to figure you out. That's real power. Not in the noise you make, but in the quiet that follows. It's funny, really, how they dig their own graves trying to bury you. How they expose their own insecurities trying to drag you down. Let them. The truth has a way of bubbling up, slow and ugly. No matter how hard they try to shove it under, you just gotta be patient. Bite your tongue till it bleeds if you have to, but don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you break. Patience, kid. That's the game. Bide your time. They'll destroy themselves, trying to get a reaction out of you. People like that. They're living on borrowed time. Lies, betrayal, fake smiles. It all comes with a price. Sooner or later the mask slips. Sooner or later the whole house of cards comes crashing down. All you gotta do is keep your hands clean and wait. That's the part they never tell you about revenge. The sweetest kind is the one you don't even have to lift a finger for. The one where they trip over their own schemes and fall face first into the mess they made. All you gotta do is stand back, cross your arms, and let them burn. No rage, no outbursts, no desperate speeches, just cold, unblinking silence. You're not weak for walking away. You're not a coward for refusing to play their games. It takes strength to hold your tongue when every nerve in your body screams to fight back. It takes power to look them dead in the eyes and say nothing. Let them think they've won. Let them have their little victories. The real war is long and slow and brutal, and most people don't have the spine for it. You've got that spine. You've taken the knives in the back and pulled them out without flinching. You've heard the whispers, the lies, the accusations, and you're still here, still standing. That says something. Most people would have folded by now, crawled back, begged for mercy, but not you. That's why they hate you, you know, because you refuse to break, refuse to kneel. They can't stand it. Can't stand that no matter what they throw at you, you just keep coming back. Colder and quieter each time. So be quiet, kid. Be patient. Let them keep talking. Keep scheming. Keep digging. Sooner or later, they'll dig their own graves. And when they're buried, neck deep in the consequences of their own actions, you can finally smile, quiet, cold, and satisfied. Because by then they'll know. They'll know that silence was never weakness. It was a warning. That's the thing about silence. They never see it coming. They're so used to noise, to chaos, to people screaming back when they get pushed. But when you don't flinch, when you just stare them down with that cold, unblinking gaze, it gets under their skin. It makes their fingers twitch, makes them stumble over their own words, because they expect you to fight, to scream, to justify yourself. When you don't, it forces them to fill the silence with their own guilt, their own fears, their own pathetic insecurities. That's when they start to unravel, bit by bit, thread by thread, trying to convince themselves they're still in control. But the truth is, the second you stopped playing their game, they lost all control. And deep down, they know it. That's why they keep pushing, because they need to hear you break, need to hear you snap and prove them right. But you won't, will you? No. You'll keep that stone-cold silence, that unnerving calm that leaves them staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering what's going on behind those eyes of yours. Because the loudest screams are the ones never heard, and the most dangerous people are the ones who've mastered the art of saying nothing at all. See, they're betting on your need to be understood, to clear your name, to set the record straight. That's the hook they dangle in front of you, shiny and tempting, hoping you'll bite. They want you to stand there, red-faced and desperate, spilling your soul to ears that stopped listening a long time ago. But you're smarter than that, aren't you? You know that explanations are just traps, little snares disguised as olive branches. The more you explain, the guiltier you sound. The more you defend yourself, the more you look like you've got something to hide. So you stay quiet. You let them talk. Let them spin their little webs of lies and half-truths. Because while they're busy running their mouths, you're watching, waiting, memorizing every slip, every crack, every little inconsistency. That's the difference between you and them. They talk to fill the silence, but you thrive in it. They burn themselves out, trying to be heard, and you're just there, patient and cold, letting them dig deeper graves with every word. Most people can't handle silence. Makes them squirm, makes them uncomfortable. It forces them to think, and most people would rather tear themselves apart than spend 5 minutes alone with their own thoughts. But not you. No. You've been alone with your thoughts long enough to know that silence isn't the enemy. It's a weapon. It's the scalpel that cuts through the lies, the mirror that shows people the monsters they really are. You've seen it, haven't you? How they start fidgeting, start stuttering when you just stare back without a word. How their voices get higher, quicker, more desperate to fill the void. It's almost funny, in a dark, twisted way, watching them unravel while you're just there, arms crossed, eyes cold, saying nothing at all. That's real power, kid. Not in how loud you can scream, but in how quiet you can stay when the whole world's trying to get a rise out of you. You think revenge is about getting even, about making them hurt the way they made you hurt. But real revenge, the kind that sticks, the kind that haunts them long after the dust's settled, that comes from silence, from walking away without looking back, without giving them the satisfaction of seeing you bleed. Because nothing's more infuriating to them than realizing they never mattered enough to break you. That all their schemes, all their whispers and knives in the dark didn't even warrant a response. That's what keeps them up at night. The not knowing. The wondering if you're out there, watching, planning, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. And maybe you are. Or maybe you've moved on, left them to rot in their own guilt and paranoia. That's the beauty of silence. They'll never know for sure. And that uncertainty, that creeping dread, that's what destroys them in the end. They think they've got you figured out, think they've won just because you stopped arguing, stopped explaining yourself. They think silence means defeat, that you've given up. But you and I both know that silence is just strategy. It's the calm before the storm, the inhale before the blade comes down. You're not done, not by a long shot. You're just watching, waiting, memorizing every move they make, every flaw, every weakness. Because when you do strike back, it won't be in anger or desperation. It'll be cold, calculated, surgical. No wasted words, no messy emotions, just quiet, brutal, efficiency. And by the time they realize what's happening, it'll already be too late. That's the power of silence. It gives you the time to plan, to prepare, to turn every little slight and insult into ammunition. They'll never see it coming because they're too busy gloating, too busy convincing themselves they've won. But you're patient. You can wait. Because revenge isn't about speed, it's about precision. You've been quiet for a long time now, biting your tongue, swallowing the anger, letting them think they've got the upper hand. But silence doesn't mean peace. It's the pressure building behind the dam, the bullet in the chamber, the knife in the sheath. Just because you're not screaming doesn't mean you're not dangerous. No, it's the opposite, really. The quiet ones, the ones who can take the hits without flinching, who can smile with blood in their teeth. They're the ones you gotta watch out for. Because when they finally do snap, it's not wild or reckless or loud. It's cold and calculated and final. No second chances, no mercy, no long-winded speeches about why they did it. Just action. Clean, silent, and absolute. So, keep your mouth shut. Let them think they've won. Let them laugh and pat each other on the back and toast to your downfall. Smile if you have to, nod along, play the part. Because every word they speak, every smug grin and whispered lie is just another inch of rope they're wrapping around their own necks. All you gotta do is wait for them to pull it tight. And they will. They always do. People like that. They can't help themselves. They self-destruct eventually. Just takes a little time and a lot of silence. So stand back, keep your hands clean, and watch it burn. Because by the time the flames die down, there won't be anything left of them but ashes and regret. And you, well, you'll still be standing there, quiet and unbroken, with that cold little smile that says it all. And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Watching them claw at their own throats, suffocate on their own lies, all while you're standing there without a scratch. They thought silence meant surrender, but it was a trap all along. See, the thing about words is, once you let them out, you can't take them back. They're evidence, ammunition, something they can twist and turn and use against you. But silence, that's untouchable. No loose ends, no contradictions, no strings for them to pull. Just a blank space that they can't fill, no matter how hard they try. It drives them mad, not knowing what you're thinking, not being able to get a rise out of you. They need that reaction, need it like a junkie needs a fix, because it makes them feel in control. So when you give them nothing, no anger, no fear, no explanations, it's like pulling the rug out from under their feet. They start to doubt themselves, start to question if they ever had any power at all. And that's when they slip, when they start making mistakes, exposing cracks, in their own armor. All you have to do is wait for the right moment to strike. But here's the trick. When that moment comes, you don't strike loud. No dramatic speeches, no declarations of vengeance. You strike quiet, fast, and lethal, like a shadow with a blade. No warnings, no mercy, just a clean cut that leaves them bleeding before they even realize they've been hit. That's how you win. Not by screaming the loudest or hitting the hardest, but by being the ghost they never saw coming. By making them pay for every insult, every betrayal, in a silence so deafening it drowns out their screams. Because the thing about silence is, it lingers. Words fade, get twisted, forgotten, but silence, real silence, that stays. It echoes, it haunts. And by the time they realize what it really meant, it's already too late. You think you need to defend yourself, to explain why you are the way you are, why you did what you did. But you don't owe them a damn thing. Not your reasons, not your excuses, not your guilt. They weren't there when you were bleeding, when you were clawing your way out of the dark with cracked nails and broken bones. They didn't see the nights you spent staring at the ceiling, chest heavy with silence that felt like it could crush you whole. They only see the surface, the mask, and they think that gives them the right to judge. But the truth is, they wouldn't survive a day in your skin. They'd break, fold, shatter into 1,000 pieces if they had to live with your memories, your scars, your silence. So let them talk. Let them call you cold, heartless, ruthless. Wear those names like armor, because they're better than the truth. The truth is, you're tired. Tired of explaining, of defending, of bleeding for people who wouldn't cross the street to pull you out of the fire. So stop explaining. Stop defending. Let them make their assumptions and choke on them. You've got nothing to prove. See, you keep trying to make them understand, but the truth is, they don't want to. Understanding would mean admitting they were wrong, admitting they were cruel, and most people would rather die than face that mirror. So they twist it around, paint you as the villain to make themselves feel better. But villains, heroes, monsters, that's all just stories they tell themselves to sleep at night. The truth is a lot simpler and a hell of a lot uglier. There are no villains, no heroes, just people, scared and desperate, trying to claw their way out of the dark by stepping on whoever they can. And the sooner you stop waiting for them to understand, the sooner you can move forward without looking back. Let them live in their little fairy tales, with their black and white morals and their twisted justifications. You've got bigger things to deal with than their approval. You know what's funny? They spend all that time trying to make you feel alone, like you're the problem, like you're the broken one. But the truth is, they're terrified of ending up like you, alone, quiet, unbroken. Because if you can survive without their approval, without their validation, then what does that say about them? About all the lies they tell themselves to get through the day? That's why they hate you. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to walk away. Because you can live with the silence, while they can't go 5 minutes without screaming into the void, desperate to be heard. You make them look in the mirror and see what they really are. Scared little children, screaming into the dark and hoping someone, anyone, will tell them they're enough. But you don't need that, do you? You've built a home out of the silence. Learn to thrive in it, to wear it like a second skin. And that terrifies them more than anything. It's almost poetic, how they destroy themselves trying to destroy you. How they lose sleep, lose friends, lose pieces of themselves trying to get a reaction. Meanwhile, you're out here collecting scars like trophies, wearing them with a smile that's a little too cold, a little too sharp. You've stopped trying to explain, stopped trying to make them see, and that's what really gets them. Because as long as you were defending yourself, they could pretend they had power. But now they're just shouting into the wind, voices hoarse, hands bloody from beating at a door that'll never open. And you're already miles away, eyes forward, silence trailing behind you like a shadow. They think silence means you've got nothing to say, but they couldn't be more wrong. You've got plenty to say. Truths sharp enough to cut, memories that could tear them to pieces. But you keep it all locked behind tight lips, not out of weakness, but out of mercy. Because the truth is, if you ever really spoke, if you ever really let them see the darkness you've been holding back, it would break them. And maybe, just maybe, you're tired of breaking things. Maybe silence is the only mercy you've got left to give. Or maybe you're just waiting for the right moment to burn it all to the ground. Either way, they'll never know. That's the beauty of it. Of silence, of shadows, of keeping your cards close to your chest. They'll spend the rest of their lives wondering what you really meant, what you really wanted, what you really could have said if you'd ever decided to speak. And when they finally break, when the guilt and the lies and the silence gets too loud to ignore, when they come crawling back, eyes hollow and hands shaking, begging for an explanation, you'll just smile. A cold, empty smile that doesn't reach your eyes, and you'll walk away without a word. Because by then, they'll already know. That silence was never surrender. It was never defeat. It was a warning. And now, it's far too late to heed it. And that's the thing, isn't it? By the time they realize what your silence really meant, they're already neck deep in the mess they made, flailing, choking on their own regrets. They'll replay every conversation, every cold stare and tight-lipped smile, trying to decipher the warning signs they ignored. It'll keep them up at night, eyes bloodshot and breaths shallow, staring at ceilings and cursing the silence that echoes louder than any scream. Because that's what they never understood. Words can lie, but silence is honest, brutally so. It doesn't dress itself up in fake smiles or sweet nothings. It just is. And when you stopped defending yourself, stopped trying to explain, that's when they should have started worrying. But they didn't. They laughed, slapped each other on the back, told themselves they'd won. And now, they've got nothing left but ashes and questions that'll never be answered. That's the real revenge. Not the blood, not the bruises, but the not knowing. The way it'll eat at them, little by little. Every silence a reminder that they never really knew you at all. They'll ask around, whisper behind closed doors, try to piece together the puzzle with bits and scraps, but it won't matter. They can dig and dig, but the truth's buried too deep, tangled in shadows and locked behind eyes that stopped caring a long time ago. And that's the part that'll really kill them. The realization that they were never the hunters. They were the prey all along, and you, with your cold eyes and quieter than grave silence, you were just watching, waiting, letting them think they had the upper hand while the noose slowly tightened around their necks. You see, the best way to destroy someone isn't to fight them head on. It's to let them destroy themselves, to step back, fold your arms, and let their own guilt, their own insecurities, do the work for you. People like that, they'll hang themselves if you give them enough rope. They'll push and lie and twist the knife, all the while thinking they're winning, never realizing the trap's already been set. All you gotta do is keep quiet, keep cold, let them talk themselves into corners they can't get out of. They'll accuse you of being heartless, ruthless, call you a monster with that wild look in their eyes. And maybe they're right. Maybe you are a monster. But at least you're an honest one. At least you don't pretend to be anything else. Because that's the thing about monsters. They don't need to explain themselves. They don't need to justify why they did what they did, why they walked away, why they left a trail of silence and burned bridges behind them. They just do what needs to be done, cold and efficient, and leave the pieces for someone else to pick up. And maybe that makes you the villain in their story. But who cares? Villain, hero, it's all the same lie, dressed up in different words. All that matters is that you're still standing, still breathing, still moving forward. They can keep their stories, their black and white fairy tales and hollow apologies. You've got better things to do than rewrite the past for people who never really wanted to understand. And that's the difference between you and them, isn't it? You stopped looking back a long time ago, stopped staring at the ruins and the ashes and wondering if things could have been different. You know better. Some things can't be fixed, can't be saved, can't be forgiven. You learned that the hard way, learned it with bloody knuckles and sleepless nights, and the kind of silence that carves scars into your bones. So you stopped explaining, stopped apologizing for who you are, for the choices you made, for the bridges you burned. Because the truth is, some people don't deserve explanations. Some people don't deserve closure. Some people deserve to choke on the silence they left behind. And they will. It might not be today, might not be tomorrow, but eventually the lies catch up. Eventually, they'll look around at the empty rooms and the echoing halls and realize that they're alone. That every backstab, every whispered betrayal, every little game they played drove away the only people who might have cared. And when that happens, when the guilt and the loneliness and the silence finally close in, they'll try to come back. They always do, with eyes downcast and voices cracking. They'll stammer apologies that mean nothing, explanations that fall flat. They'll tell you they've changed, that they're sorry, that they didn't mean it. But by then, it's too late. You've moved on, built walls too high to climb, and all their words just bounce off cold stone. Because that's the thing about betrayal. It's a one-way street. Once the knife's been buried, there's no pulling it back out. You'll see it in their eyes. That moment they realize you're done playing their game. That the silence isn't a pause, isn't a breath, but a door slammed shut. That they can scream and beg and plead all they want. But you're not listening. You've made peace with the silence, built a throne out of it, and no amount of apologies is going to tear that down. That's when they'll really start to break. Not when you screamed, not when you fought, but when you turned away without a word, eyes cold and steps steady. Because silence, real silence, is a kind of death. It's the end of the line, the point of no return, the final nail in the coffin. And some people, they'd rather bleed themselves dry than face it. But not you. No. You're different. You've seen enough, bled enough, lost enough to know that some things are better left buried, that some people don't deserve the satisfaction of knowing what they did, how deep the knife went, how long it took for the wounds to stop bleeding. Let them wonder. Let them lie awake, turning over every word, every cold stare, every unanswered call. Let them drown in the silence they created. You've got no obligation to save them, no reason to look back. You gave them chances, gave them explanations, gave them more mercy than they ever deserved. And they spat on it, laughed, twisted the knife deeper with every fake smile and hollow promise. So now, you give them nothing. No closure, no answers, no second chances, just silence, cold, endless, and absolute. And maybe that makes you cruel. Maybe that makes you heartless. But it also makes you free. Free from the lies, from the games, from the endless cycle of betrayal and apologies that never meant a damn thing. Free to move forward, eyes cold and spine straight, without dragging the weight of their guilt behind you. And isn't that what they're really afraid of? That you never needed them, never needed their validation, never needed their fake smiles and empty words, that you're better off alone, that you're stronger for the silence, for the scars, for the bridges you burned without a second thought. That's why they hate you. That's why they whisper and point and try to drag you back into their little games. Because if you can survive without them, if you can thrive in the silence, then maybe they're the ones who were weak all along. So keep walking. Let the silence stretch long and dark behind you. Let the bridges burn to ashes. Let the whispers and accusations fade into static. You've got nothing to prove, nothing to explain, nothing to apologize for. You've seen the worst they have to offer and came out the other side, colder, harder, stronger. And that, kid, is all the revenge you'll ever need. You know, kid, I've seen it all. The twisted grins, the whispered lies, the betrayal that cuts deeper than any blade. You walked into their world, all wide-eyed and open, thinking maybe, just maybe, this time it'd be different. But you were wrong, weren't you? They chewed you up and spat you out. Left you wondering if the problem was you. They laughed behind your back, made you the punchline of their jokes, and all the while, you kept giving, kept believing. You played the fool, but you didn't even know it. But here's the thing about fools. They're dangerous. You see, they think you're soft, weak, too naive to see through their masks. They mistake kindness for stupidity, generosity for desperation. Oh, how wrong they were. Because when the dust settled, when the smoke cleared, there you were, still standing. And them? They were left clutching their heads, trying to piece together their shattered minds. It's funny, really. They thought they were playing you, but in the end, you played them. Life is a game, kid, but it's not a fair one. It's rigged, stacked against you from the start. The house always wins, and the people around you, they're just waiting for you to fold. They love to watch you lose because it makes their misery seem smaller. You ever notice that? How they lean in when you're down, how their eyes glimmer when they see your pain. It's because your failures feed their egos. They need your downfall to justify their own stagnant lives. Pathetic, isn't it? But you had something they didn't. Resilience. They thought breaking you would be easy. A few harsh words, a couple of backstabs, and you'd crumble. But they didn't understand that some of us are built from the rubble of our own disasters. You took every hit, every sneer, and turned it into fuel. You let the fire burn, but not destroy. You let the pain sink in, but not drown you. You became the calm in the storm, the eye of the hurricane. And that terrifies them. They called you a fool, But a fool is just a king who hasn't taken his throne yet. You see, when you're the underdog, when everyone writes you off, that's when you're most dangerous, because no one sees you coming. They're too busy counting you out to realize you're still in the ring. And when you finally strike, it's not a punch, it's a knockout. You don't just win, you obliterate. You take everything they thought they knew and turn it into ash. That's power. Real power. The kind that doesn't need to be loud or flashy. The kind that speaks in silence and moves in shadows. You didn't need revenge. No. Revenge is too easy. It's for the weak. You wanted something deeper, darker. You wanted them to question themselves. You wanted them to lie awake at night, replaying every conversation, every smirk, every sneer, wondering where it all went wrong. You wanted them to feel what you felt, lost, confused, empty. And the beauty of it all, you didn't have to lift a finger, you just had to survive. And by surviving, you won. You shattered their minds without even trying. Now every time they see you, every time they hear your name, they're haunted. You became their ghost, their nightmare, their regret. But let me tell you something, kid. Regret is a prison with no bars. It eats at you from the inside, gnawing away until there's nothing left but bones and shadows. They'll carry that regret like a chain, dragging it behind them, clinking and clanking with every step. And you'll walk free. You'll walk tall. Because while they were busy plotting your downfall, you were building your empire. While they were laughing at your pain, you were finding strength in your scars. And now, those scars are your armor, and their regret is their punishment. They wanted to see you break, but all they did was sharpen your edges. They thought they'd bury you, but you were a seed all along. They expected a grave, but instead, they got a garden. A dark, twisted, beautiful garden where nothing they said or did could ever grow again. You became untouchable, not because you were above them, but because you were beyond them. They no longer had the power to hurt you, and that's the ultimate victory. You played the fool, but you were never foolish. You gave them chances, offered them the benefit of the doubt, showed them the light when they only knew shadows. And when they threw it all away, when they proved they weren't worth it, you didn't fight back. You just watched. And sometimes, watching is all it takes. They'll destroy themselves eventually. All you had to do was step back and let them. Life isn't about winning every battle. It's about choosing which wars are worth your blood. You chose to walk away, to let the storm rage while you built a shelter within yourself. And now they're drowning, and you're dry. Now they're lost, and you found your way. Now they're haunted, and you're at peace. So, kid, remember this. You might have played the fool, but you wrote the final act. You turned their stage into your story, their script into your monologue. And the best part, they'll never understand how you did it. They'll spend the rest of their lives trying to decipher the code, to figure out how the person they thought was weak ended up being the strongest of them all. And that, my friend, is the greatest joke of all. But the show isn't over yet, is it? See, they thought that was the end, that you walking away was some kind of surrender. But what they don't get is that silence is deadlier than any scream. When you stop caring, stop reacting, stop playing their games, that's when they panic. Because they need you to need them. They need your attention, your pain, your anger. Without it, they're nothing. That's the part they'll never admit. They pretended to hate you, to mock you. But deep down, they needed you. You were the fuel to their miserable little fires. And when you took that away, when you turned your back, the flames died out. And now, they're left in the dark, clutching at shadows, whispering your name like a curse they can't break. It's funny, really, how they called you weak when they were the ones terrified of being alone. They surrounded themselves with sycophants and echo chambers, desperate for validation, for someone to tell them they mattered. But you walked alone through the darkest nights and came out colder, sharper, untouched. That scares them more than any threat you could have made, because when you've survived the worst, what's left to fear? You've stared into the abyss, kid, and it blinked first. They can't stand that. Can't stand knowing you don't need them, that you never did. But let's get real for a second. This world doesn't care about you, never did. It chews people up, spits them out, grinds dreams into dust without a second thought. And if you're waiting for some kind of justice, some cosmic balance to make things right, you'll be waiting till you're 6 feet under. Justice isn't real. It's a story they tell to keep you in line, to make you think suffering has a purpose. But the truth? Suffering just is. It's the price of breathing, the tax on existence. But here's the twist. They can't tax your will. They can't touch that fire inside that refuses to go out. That's yours and yours alone. They can strip away everything else, leave you bleeding and bare. But as long as you've got that spark, you're dangerous. That's what they can't understand. They see scars and call them weaknesses. But scars are proof you survived. They see silence and call it defeat. But silence is strategy. Let them think you're done. Let them believe they've won. Because when you rise, and you will rise, it won't be with words. It'll be with actions, with cold eyes and a steady pulse, with a smile that says, I know something you don't. And when that day comes, they'll break. Not because of anything you said or did, but because the very sight of you, unbroken, unbothered, will remind them of everything they'll never be. But don't get cocky, kid. This isn't some fairy tale where the hero gets a happy ending. There are no heroes, just people doing what they must to survive. If you're looking for meaning, stop. There isn't any. The universe doesn't owe you a damn thing. It'll watch you bleed and turn the other way without a second thought. That's the reality they don't want you to see. That nothing and no one is coming to save you. But that's okay. Because once you accept that, once you embrace the void, you become unstoppable. No expectations mean no disappointments. No attachments mean no chains. You're free, kid. Free in a way they'll never be. And that's the real punchline. Look at them. Scrambling to piece together their little lives, clinging to their lies and labels like lifeboats in a storm. They call you mad, but madness is just freedom by another name. They're the ones trapped, not you. Trapped by their own fears, their own delusions. They need their rules and their reasons, their morals and masks, but you've seen the truth beneath it all, the chaos, the void, the beautiful endless darkness that swallows all things. You don't fear it. You thrive in it. While they're praying for the light, you've made a home in the shadows. And here's the secret, kid. The shadows aren't empty. They're full of power, of potential, of everything they're too scared to face. You found strength in solitude, wisdom in wounds, clarity in chaos. While they were busy hiding behind smiles and small talk, you were learning, evolving, becoming something they can't even begin to understand. And that terrifies them, because they know that when push comes to shove, when all the masks are off, you'll do what they can't. You'll make the hard choices, walk the lonely roads, leave behind everything and everyone if that's what it takes. They'll call you heartless, ruthless, a monster even. But monsters are just people who refuse to be victims. You stopped being a victim the day you stopped caring what they thought. The day you looked in the mirror and saw not the scars, not the pain, but the survivor beneath it all. The day you realized you didn't need their acceptance, their apologies, their empty words. That was the day you won. Not because they admitted defeat, but because you stopped needing them to. They think the game is about winning or losing, but it's not. It's about endurance, about outlasting. And you, kid, you've proven you can take the hits. You've bled and burned and broken and still got back up. That's something they'll never understand. They think strength is about dominance, about having power over others. But real strength, it's about standing alone, bleeding and battered and saying, "Is that all you've got?" It's about refusing to stay down, refusing to be defined by what they did to you. It's about making pain your armor, silence your sword, and survival your revenge. So let them talk. Let them sneer and whisper and spread their little lies. Let them think they've won, because you and I both know the truth. They're scared, terrified that one day you'll stop holding back, that one day you'll show them what real power looks like. The kind that doesn't need an audience, that doesn't seek approval, the kind that moves in silence and strikes without warning. And when that day comes, when they're all alone with nothing but their regrets and shattered minds, they'll finally understand. They didn't beat you. They unleashed you. They didn't bury you. They planted you. And what grows from that darkness, from that pain, will be something they can't even comprehend. So go on, kid. Keep walking. Keep smiling that quiet, dangerous smile. Let them think you're a fool. Because the best part about being underestimated, they never see you coming. And that's the real joke. The one they'll never get, no matter how many times they replay it in their heads. You played the fool, sure, but the joke's always been on them. But it gets better, kid. See, they'll tell you that you're bitter, that holding onto the pain makes you weak, that forgiveness is the path to freedom. What a laugh. Forgiveness isn't freedom. It's surrender. It's handing them a clean slate they never earned, letting them walk away without facing the mess they made. They don't want forgiveness for your sake. They want it for theirs, to ease their guilt, to rewrite the past, to pretend the knife they stuck in your back wasn't twisted on purpose. But you know better. You've seen the truth behind their crocodile tears, their empty apologies. You've seen how quickly they move on, how easily they sleep at night, while you lie awake, replaying every lie, every betrayal. They want you to forgive and forget, but forgetting is for the weak. The pain isn't a prison. It's a reminder, a scar that keeps you sharp, keeps you from making the same mistake twice. The people who tell you to let go are the ones who've never held on to anything that mattered. They don't get it. Don't get that some wounds aren't meant to heal, that some memories aren't meant to fade, because those memories, those scars, they're the armor that keeps you standing when the world tries to knock you down again. You don't let go of the blade just because it cuts deep. You hold tighter until your hands bleed, until you've learned every inch of its edge, until you can turn it back on those who tried to gut you with it. But they'll say that makes you no better than them, won't they? That revenge is a poison, that hating them only chains you to the past. But hatred isn't a chain, it's fuel. It's what gets you out of bed when the pain makes you want to lay down and never get up again. It's what keeps your eyes open when the nightmares come, what keeps your fists clenched when all you want to do is break. They don't understand that kind of fire, the kind that burns but never consumes, that keeps you warm in a world that's nothing but ice. They don't understand that sometimes the only way forward is to turn around and burn everything they built to the ground. But you don't owe them understanding, kid. You don't owe them forgiveness or mercy or a second chance. Mercy is for the innocent, for those who've made mistakes, not choices. And they chose. They chose to hurt, to betray, to lie and smile and pretend like they weren't ripping you apart piece by piece. They'll act surprised when you turn cold, call you heartless, call you cruel. But that's because they're afraid. Afraid that they can't control you anymore, that the power they had is gone for good. And that's the truth they'll never admit, that they're powerless without your pain. You ever notice how the same people who threw you to the wolves are the ones who can't stand seeing you survive? How they talk about your darkness like it's a flaw, but it's the very thing that kept you alive. They'll say you've changed, that you're not the same person you used to be. Of course you're not. You can't walk through hell and come out the same. The fire either forges you or it finishes you, and you're still here. That's what burns them the most, that you walked through their flames and didn't turn to ash. They wanted a victim, but you became something else. Something they can't understand, something they can't control. They'll call you ruthless, tell you that holding grudges only drags you down. But grudges aren't chains, they're weights, and weights build strength. Every ounce of anger, every drop of bitterness, it's just another rep, another set, another step towards becoming unbreakable. You don't drop the weight just because it's heavy. You carry it until you can crush the ones who put it there. Because in this world, kid, kindness gets you killed and forgiveness gets you buried. You want peace? Make them afraid to go to war with you again. And don't let them fool you into thinking solitude is a curse. Being alone isn't the same as being lonely. Loneliness is when you're surrounded by people who don't see you, don't hear you, don't care if you live or die. Solitude? Solitude is power. It's silence without apologies, peace without compromises. It's choosing to be your own hero instead of begging for a savior. They say you're isolated, but the truth is you outgrew them. They're shallow words. They're empty smiles. They're hollow promises. They can't reach you now, and that terrifies them. Because without you to lean on, without you to blame, they're forced to face themselves. And what they see in the mirror isn't pretty. Let them keep talking. Keep whispering your name with venom on their tongues. Every lie they spread, every rumor they start, it's just proof that you're still in their heads, rent-free. They want you to break, want you to snap, to come crawling back so they can tear you apart again. But that's the real power, isn't it? Knowing they'll never get that chance. Knowing that no matter how much they hate, no matter how many knives they throw, you're untouchable. You're beyond them. But they'll say you're bitter, that you need to heal, to let it go. But letting go is for people who can afford to forget. And you remember everything. Every word, every betrayal, every knife in the back. You remember not because you're weak, but because you refuse to let them rewrite the story. They'll paint you as the villain if they can't make you the victim. But villains survive. Villains write their own endings. And if you've got to be the bad guy in their story to be the hero in yours, so be it. They say revenge doesn't change the past, and maybe that's true, but it sure as hell changes the future. It puts the fear back where it belongs, in their eyes, not yours. It makes them think twice before they try to cross you again. It turns the tables, flips the script, makes them taste the blood they spilled. And maybe that doesn't fix anything. Maybe it doesn't fill the emptiness or stop the nightmares, but it's something. And in a world that's taken everything from you, something is enough. So don't let them guilt you into softness. Don't let them convince you that your darkness is something to be ashamed of. You earned that darkness. You bled for it, fought for it, survived for it. It's yours. Wear it like armor, sharpen it like a blade, and when the time comes, let it cut deep. Because in the end, the only justice in this world is the kind you take for yourself. They'll call it ruthless, call it cruel, call it madness. But madness is just freedom they don't understand. So keep walking, kid. Keep your head up, your eyes cold, your scars bare. Let them talk. Let them plot. Let them pray for your downfall, because every step you take, every breath you draw, is proof that they failed. You're still here. You're still standing. And that's the punchline they'll never get. They thought they could bury you, but all they did was plant a seed. And what grows from that darkness, from that pain, will be something they'll never be ready for. You played the fool, sure. But now the game is yours. And they're the ones left playing in the dark. But the real joke, the one they'll never understand, is that the darkness didn't just change you, it revealed you. It stripped away all the lies, the masks, the illusions, and left you raw, real, untouchable. You weren't broken, kid, you were refined. The fire didn't burn you alive, it burned away everything false. The person you were before, that was the disguise. Soft, trusting, eager to see the good in people who never had any. But now you see the world for what it is. Ruthless, selfish, cold. And instead of flinching, instead of begging for warmth, you adapted. You built your own fire out of the pain. And now, it's them who can't stand the heat. They'll never admit it, of course. They'll keep playing their little games, keep spinning their lies, keep pretending like they're not terrified every time you walk into the room. Because that's the thing about power. It's not about who's got the loudest voice or the biggest crowd. Real power is in silence, in the way you don't flinch when they scream, don't blink when they threaten, don't bend when they try to break you. Real power is looking them dead in the eyes, smiling that cold, quiet smile, and watching them fall apart without lifting a finger. And they hate that. Hate knowing they can't touch you, can't shake you, can't make you doubt yourself the way they doubt themselves every single day. That's why they keep pushing, keep testing, keep trying to drag you back down into the mud with them. Misery loves company, and they're miserable, kid, empty, bitter, hollow inside. They need you to bleed so they don't feel so alone in their own emptiness. But you stopped bleeding a long time ago, didn't you? You sewed yourself up with barbed wire and grit, cauterized the wounds with rage and silence, and left them staring at their bloody hands, wondering why they still feel so cold. See, they thought the pain would ruin you, that you'd drown in it, let it drag you down into the dark and keep you there. But pain is just a tool. It shapes, it molds, it carves away everything soft until there's nothing left but iron and edge. You didn't drown in it. You learned to breathe underwater. While they were flailing, gasping, reaching for anything to keep from sinking, you embraced the depths. You stopped fighting the current and became the storm. And now, they're the ones struggling to keep up, to understand how the person they tried to destroy turned into something they can't even recognize. That's the irony, isn't it? They spent so much time building themselves up, surrounding themselves with sycophants and yes-men, feeding off each other's lies until they forgot what the truth even tastes like. But you were alone. You had nothing and no one but the voice in your head telling you to keep going, keep fighting, keep breathing. They had their armies, their gossip, their masks, and it still wasn't enough. Because you can't fake strength. You can't pretend to have fire when all you've got is smoke and mirrors. They'll call you cruel for not forgiving them, for not pretending the knife in your back didn't leave scars. But forgiveness without change is just permission to get hurt again. It's handing them a second blade and baring your chest. They don't want to make things right. They just want to stop feeling guilty. They don't want you to heal. They want you to forget. But forgetting is a luxury you can't afford. Every scar is a lesson. Every nightmare a reminder that monsters wear smiles, and friends can turn to enemies without warning. So let them talk. Let them paint you as the villain, the monster, the heartless one. Because the truth, villains are just victims who got tired of being betrayed. Monsters are just survivors who refuse to die quietly. And heartless? Heartless is what they call you when you stop giving yours away for free. They'll never admit it, but they need someone to hate more than they need someone to love. They need to blame you because blaming themselves would mean facing the truth. That they're not heroes, not victims, not innocent, just cowards hiding behind excuses and lies. But you're done playing their game. You've seen behind the curtain, pulled back the masks, and what you saw wasn't worth saving. So let them hate. Let them choke on their own bitterness while you keep walking. Keep building. Keep rising. Because every step forward is a reminder that they failed. Every breath you take is proof that the knives they threw weren't sharp enough. And every time they hear your name, every time they see you thriving, it'll eat at them a little more. They wanted to break you, but all they did was free you. Free from the need for approval, from the chains of their opinions, from the lies they told to keep you small. They don't get that yet, They think you're still playing the same game, still trying to prove something, still desperate to be understood. But you stopped caring what they thought the day you realized their opinions were just reflections of their own insecurities. They call you heartless because they can't stand how at peace you are with being alone. They call you cruel because they can't fathom strength that doesn't need an audience. But it's not about revenge, is it? No, revenge is too easy, too shallow. This isn't about making them pay. It's about making sure they never get the chance to touch you again. It's about building walls so high, so dark, so unbreakable that even their shadows can't reach you. It's about becoming untouchable, unstoppable, something more than they could ever understand. Not because you hate them, but because you love yourself too much to ever go back. Because survival is the best revenge, and thriving is the final nail in the coffin of their lies. So keep your head high, your eyes forward, and let the past rot where it belongs. Let them choke on their own regret, drown in the emptiness they tried to drag you into. Let them tell their stories, spread their lies, pretend like they're not haunted by the memory of what they did. Because at the end of the day, the truth doesn't need defending. It just needs to be lived. And you're still here, still breathing, still fighting, still rising. That's the real punchline, kid. Not that they failed to break you, but that in trying, they broke themselves. They wanted a villain, and you gave them one. But not the one they expected. Not a monster that hides in shadows, but a storm that walks in daylight. Not someone who wants revenge, but someone who doesn't need it. Someone who's moved beyond hate, beyond pain, beyond them. You played the fool, sure. But now you're the one writing the story. And they're just background noise, echoes in a past you left behind. That's the real joke, the one they'll never get, no matter how many times they replay it in their heads. You didn't just survive them, you thrived because of them. And that's a story they'll never have the courage to tell.